Behind the woman who hypnotized the world with her flawless Italian curves and burning gaze lay a sinner the Vatican wanted to excommunicate. Welcome to Iconic Lives. Today we will discuss the dark, uncensored story of the legendary sex symbol Sophia Loren, who turned her body into a weapon to escape poverty, cried in prison cells, was held hostage by armed robbers, and fought a lone war against the Catholic Church. Get ready for the absolute truth of her twisted life. When she was born as an illegitimate child in Rome, life showed her its cruelest face. Her father Riccardo refused to marry her mother Romilda, abandoning them right in the middle of misery. Being labeled a bastard in Catholic Italy was practically a social death warrant for a little girl. Sophia grew up carrying that deep, bleeding wound of fatherlessness in her heart. This deep sense of abandonment would later cause her to seek missing fatherly affection in much older men. During World War II, she fought starvation and deadly bombs in Pozzuoli. She was so extremely thin that kids on the street mockingly nicknamed her Toothpick. She collected food scraps from the dirt and hid with rats in dark tunnels during horrific bombings. This terrifying trauma and constant fear of death created an unerasable hunger deep inside her sad soul. That insatiable appetite for immense wealth and absolute power was actually born right in those dark underground tunnels. As she entered adolescence, her body developed miraculously, and these curves became her ticket out of misery. Her mother believed she could save them by marketing her beauty. When she entered pageants in a cheap dress sewn from her grandmother's pink curtains, she realized the true power of men's greedy stares for the very first time. Sophia learned at an early age, inside a ruthless market, that her fierce femininity was a highly dangerous and extremely profitable weapon.
At 15, she met powerful producer Carlo Ponti, who was 22 years older than her. Ponti was married but became sickeningly obsessed with her beauty. He molded her with his own hands like a clay statue. He changed her name, dictated her walk, and turned her into a flawless sex object. This relationship was not pure love. It was an old man buying a young body, and that young body completely obeying him to ruthlessly climb the ladder of massive fame and absolute power in Hollywood.
When she stepped into Hollywood, she began a passionate, forbidden romance with legendary actor Cary Grant on the set of The Pride and the Passion. Grant was madly in love with this young Italian beauty and ready to leave his wife for her. This dangerous daily romance dragged Sophia into a massive psychological dilemma. On one side was Ponti, the rich producer who recreated her. On the other, the world's most handsome man. Making a final firm decision was sheer absolute torture. Ultimately, she chose absolute power and security over romance. Leaving Cary Grant's shattered heart behind, she returned to Carlo Ponti, who held her career in his hands. This decision clearly proved how calculating and pragmatic Sophia could be, even regarding true love. Suppressing her emotions and acting with cold logic was a dark survival instinct from her deeply poor past. While Hollywood shook with this cold-blooded betrayal, Sophia ruthlessly built her very own massive empire. Her relationship with Ponti turned into a massive moral scandal that shook Italy. Since divorce was strictly illegal in Italy, Ponti divorced by proxy in Mexico and married Sophia by proxy. This fake marriage instantly made them dirty criminals in their homeland. The two lovers were officially declared bigamists and illegally cohabiting sinners in their own country. The police were waiting at the airport to arrest them for severe immorality the moment they stepped inside the country. The Vatican instantly declared war on this fake marriage. The Catholic Church branded Sophia Loren as a demonic sinner corrupting society and threatened to completely excommunicate them. There were loud calls for her films to be boycotted by the church. The most desired woman in the world was being humiliated and stoned like a prostitute by her own faith and country. Fearing arrest, they could not return to Italy for years, and this ruthless dark exile left deep wounds in Sophia's soul. Hollywood marketed her purely as a walking cleavage. That iconic photo of Sophia staring in sheer horror at Jane Mansfield's famous wardrobe malfunction was a dark document of how the industry ruthlessly pitted women against each other. Although Sophia hated being a fantasy object made of meat in a men's world, she played this disgusting game by its rules. By hiding her brilliant intelligence behind heavy makeup and deep cleavages, she successfully survived this wild, cruel exploitation cycle. Behind the closed doors of that glamorous life, she experienced the horrific psychological torture of being unable to become a mother. The bloody miscarriages she suffered dragged her to the dark bottom of severe depression. While the whole world envied her flawless physique, she saw her own body as a graveyard. Those desperate breakdowns in hospital rooms after losing her babies proved fame could not soothe any pain. That deep void inside could not be filled with cash or golden awards. She disregarded her health for the sake of becoming a mother. Due to the strict bed rest rule, she practically lived a prison life in a Swiss hotel room for months. She was forbidden even to move. This period of isolation was a complete state of madness, mentally and physically. She managed to give birth by locking her body in a tiny cell. However, these traumatic pregnancies were a hidden psychological war where she was left alone with the terrifying fear of death and heavy anxiety. That horrific incident in her luxury New York hotel room in 1970 proved the heavy price of fame once again. Armed robbers raided her room and pressed the gun barrel directly against Sophia's head. When she felt that cold metal on her temple, she realized her entire life could end in a split second. While begging in tears, millions of dollars worth of jewelry were stolen in front of her eyes. That untouchable sex goddess was suddenly a desperate, trembling victim face to face with death. 1982 was that dark year when the flawless Sophia Loren legend kneeled before the law. The Italian state ruthlessly convicted her for tax evasion. That divine woman, who had been the pride of Italy for years, suddenly turned into a common criminal. The horrific shattering of her reputation completely trampled her pride underfoot. The media was now lynching the queen they once worshipped in their brutal headlines, taking great pleasure in her corrupt and deeply humiliating dark downfall. When she returned to Italy to serve her sentence, she found herself behind the cold iron bars of a women's prison. She breathed the very same air as common criminals for 17 days. Crying at night in her cell, she experienced the shocking trauma of falling from the glamorous world of Hollywood to prison toilets. The world's biggest diva was being humiliated in a prisoner uniform and paying a heavy penance. That tiny cell was the most ruthless and fatal blow struck to her massive ego. Her famous feud with colleague Gina Lollobrigida was a disgusting and toxic war fueled by the media. The two Italian stars ruthlessly insulted each other in front of the press, going as far as comparing breast sizes and acting abilities. This so-called rivalry was actually Hollywood's perversion of pitting two powerful women against each other to gain ratings. In these low-blow attacks, Sophia was sometimes a victim, and sometimes a ruthless predator spewing venom to destroy her rival. As years passed, she came under heavy pressure to keep her legendary beauty from fading. Rumors that she pushed the limits of plastic surgery severely damaged her natural Italian woman image. Aging was an unacceptable defeat for an icon who existed solely through her beauty. The heavy masks she wore to hide her wrinkles were actually the dark expression of her terrifying fear of losing her youth. Time's ruthless slap exploded on her face, just like all the other famous sex symbols. The death of Carlo Ponti, the absolute authority in her life, left her completely orphaned. When that authoritarian man who shaped her career and identity for over half a century was gone, Sophia fell into a massive void. For a woman living mostly by her husband's vision rather than her own will, this was a gigantic psychological collapse. Even her massive fortune could never suppress that terrifying feeling of loneliness and the dark silence inside her luxurious Swiss mansion. As Sophia Loren transformed from a starving bastard child into a sex goddess who brought the world to its knees, she opened deep wounds in her soul. As iconic lives, today we expose that horrific prison cell, the bloody miscarriages, and her devastating war with the church behind that flawless cleavage. She was a victim made of steel who survived in a men's world by using her beauty as a shield, but paid the price with hidden tears. Stay with the bloody truths of legends. Goodbye.